Hey, we are back for another episode of RevivalCast. It's episode 39. Dankest Crowns Rock. We've got our special guest, Omwa, one of the devs from Revival. And we've got Polaris and Sailkite. I think I'm going to start by just letting everybody else say hello. So why don't we have Omwa start with that?
What's up, guys? It's me, Omwa, and I am the lore master and lead designer on Revival.
Sail?
Hi, I'm Sam. I'm not muted. That's good. I thought I was muted for a second. And it's been a good week. We're going to talk some good revival stuff from perhaps a different angle than we normally do. And we had a kicking blog too, which was like super awesome. So glad with
Congratulations.
that. Yeah, I was chatting on one about it earlier, but it was
Polaris?
Hi, hi. I'm
Yeah,
excited.
we're gonna do something a little different. And I'm forgot about this part, so I don't even know how to introduce it. But we're gonna not do the blog discussion today. I think because we only have an hour, we've got Ombo on, we've got a lot to talk about, and we're one blog behind anyway, so we'd be trying to cover two. Um, uh, Next week, we are not having a Sunday show because it's Super Bowl Sunday. We're going to have a Super Blog Saturday, and we're
Oh,
going to discuss three blogs with, I think it's Velix and Sword Saint.
excellent.
Um, and so we'll have two backlogged blogs to do and hopefully one new one. That's on Saturday instead of Sunday. And yeah, so today we're going to be kind of focusing on how Darkest Dungeon might translate over to Revival. If anybody has not played or watched somebody play, people should watch Omba play Monday nights. He plays Darkest Dungeon. It's a lot of fun. But it was really wild for me because he plays very differently from what I was expecting. So, if people don't know, I used to work for Activision back when Diablo first came out. I was rooming with two designers from Activision. And we tried to play Diablo together, and I wanted to role play a little bit because I'm a role play guy. And we'd go into these dungeons together, and they'd wipe out the dungeon, and I'd be like, "Okay, let's talk about what just happened, and go through our backgrounds, and talk about what our characters might think of this." And they were like, "Nope, cleared it out. That's it." And I'd be like, "Well, there might be some loot over." "Nope, nope. We've just deconstructed the room. There's nothing
Sweeping
left in
clear.
the room. We're moving on to the next one. By the
Take your
design of
angles.
this room, we have done everything. It has to work like this." I mean, they get deconstructed every dungeon based on its design and just went through boop, 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 boop. And I was like, well, I was hoping to kind of be in character, but I guess that doesn't matter. And I just figured that's the way designers play because they understand the game's design. They just break them down and go through it. But I watched Ombra play, and he's like completely the opposite. He's like, I'm just gonna go through here, and it tells you, Darkest Dungeon tells you in the first tutorial, you might want to bring at least 8 food,
I
and
was
4
broke.
torches. And
I was broke that time. I had no money. I couldn't buy them food.
how that happens, I don't know. But he just goes through
Bad money management.
um and he kind of goes through and picks people out by who has the least stress. He pulls people in without thinking about off the stagecoach without thinking of which dungeon he's going in. Like I'm always I'm looking for this guy for this dungeon. Um and uh and then well, lots of stuff, but it's very different, and he's not really thinking about the optimal way to win each encounter.
That's.
Um
I can see how you
and
might perceive that.
and and his guys die a lot.
It's
I don't know if he retreats often enough either. But I mean, I have ways that if I want money, I have my thing set up so that I can go in and get money when I need the money. Um, but what it had me thinking is about different play styles. And I think a lot of times we play similar games thinking that everybody has the same kind of play style. So I like to focus on the Bartle, Explorer, Socializer, Achiever, and Killer a lot because that might help you understand how the people you're playing with might play differently than you. So out of all of that, it had me wondering about how what are some ways that people might play unexpectedly in Revival that's kind of maybe different from the winning scenario, the go 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 scenario. And I think I phrased that question for Ombwe as how might we translate the way he plays Darkest Dungeon to the way someone might play Revival? Are there non-traditional play styles that you're anticipating, Ombwe?
Certainly. In fact, because we intend Revival to be more of a role playing game than a stat grind or a gear grind or something. There is no real pinnacle. There are your goals, and you're going to do those goals. So even if that goal is locate every great old one and slay them or send them off or whatever, which would be akin to Darkest Dungeon, right? This place is infested. We have a checklist of bad guys that are the baddest bad guys, and they live in these 4 places. So we're going to route them one at a time. Even if that's your goal, assemble your list and then go tick them off. That's your goal, not necessarily someone else's. And if you find someone else with that goal, it's probably best for you guys to form a monster hunting association or maybe be rivals. But none of this is like I'm grinding my paladin to top. I'm on the pally chain. I'm on the whatever. They're all kind of your goals. So I expect a lot of lateral gameplay, a lot of I feel like doing this, or I'm going to try this with this guy. And if you embrace the potential for aging and dying, it's with this life I'm going to pursue this goal, this life goal, and it may be wacky. It may not even be possible. It may be possible. You may want to create a god. You may want to slay a god, and these are both things people have talked about that are like, well, this sounds like it might be possible. Can I do it? And I'm not going to say yes or no. I'm just going to give you seeds in the world and let you pursue that and let that be your play. So already we're different than a game with a goal.
Yeah, and now that you mention that, so one of the things that happens in Darkest Dungeon and why it's so very different from what we're used to when we're thinking about from an RPG standpoint, because we're trying to build this one character and keep it, and it might die, but it comes back. And here, these characters are fodder. They're very likely to die.
Grist for the mill.
I try to get them out at least quick enough so I can save my items if I'm not going to save the character.
If one person comes back, you get everything.
Oh yeah, and so and it's crazy because I'll be playing the game and I'll say, "Oh man." At this point, I'm like, "Oh man, I couldn't stop that one character from going mad. They're all alive."
Right, but this one,
this one, yeah, yeah. Um, and um, and one of the ways that relates again to what you just said is, I talk very often about my 21 alts. And one of the reasons why I can have those alts is because I have goals for certain ones. I want this one to go as mad as possible so that I can see what happens when that
travel
does.
the planes, slide all through,
Yeah,
become unhinged. Yeah.
Or some of these I'm expecting to die early instead of having, just one that has to stay alive through the whole thing. So I think that is one way. I think a lot of people, when I was talking about that, and it caused a big kerfluffle on the forums, is because
I thought it was pretty good, actually.
People are thinking about just having that one character and it being the best. But there's other things you can do. And again, since it's role playing, one of the examples I have, someone was like, being a farmer, you aren't going to be a great farmer if you have all these, it takes too much time. But actually, being a horrible farmer because you're cursed is a role playing.
Yeah, it's an experience
avenue. So that's a role that might be fun to play. I'm horrible at farming because I got cursed.
Well, and maybe you are that for a while, and then maybe that becomes frustrating, and so you seek a way to get rid of this curse, and then you have an adventure doing that. And
Right.
this is a whole different it's a story, you know. I honestly am trying to build an online role playing game because my
Yeah, and
roots
it's
are in
really a
tabletop
and I think it's really
MMOs
a
don't do it.
role-playing world
Yeah, that's the goal.
more so than a game.
That's
Um,
absolutely my goal.
yeah, yeah.
I've even bluntly said before, I'm not building a game. I'm building a toy, you know, a stage,
Well,
you
and that's
know.
the other thing that I was thinking when I watched you play is people use the word sandbox, but to me, it really you play Darkest Dungeon to me like you're in a sandbox and you're just I'm not building a castle, but it's fun to throw this sand around and do whatever the hell I want to
There
and
is some
right.
structure to my madness.
There's a little bit of structure to your
There's
madness,
more
but
than is apparent, I believe.
okay, okay,
Um,
right,
I can defend myself a little. It's not even defense because you're right. It is that I'm playing it the fun way, and I could go read 3 or 4 guides and go study up on what
yeah,
Necromancer's Apprentice is going to be, and what his
yeah,
abilities are, and all this.
yeah,
I kind of don't want to,
right, right, right,
Plus, I come from a time. You as well. We're pretty similar in age. You remember back when guidebooks, those were like cheating. Like
right,
you don't
right,
don't
right,
read a
right,
guidebook. I don't need
right,
one. I'm gonna do this by myself.
right,
I beat Zelda without a guidebook. The original
right,
goal.
right,
I was proud of that
right,
because nobody held my hand through it.
yeah,
So there's a little bit of that, but also. So there's a couple factors. One, the game has evolved. I backed it on Kickstarter, so I've been playing
hmm
it since basically it came out. And there were fewer classes, so they've added classes as I've been playing. Where I've just been like, wow, I've never seen a guy with a dog before. Let's
hmm
take him. That's
hmm
cool.
hmm
What's he got? So I'm learning it by experience.
right.
Which, if you watch the whole, like, there's way too much of it to watch, but there's 10 or so
Oh,
hours of
there's plenty. I mean, it's great.
I,
Everybody needs
I
to
have an
watch
arc.
this.
I have a story arc, and I'm
Yeah.
putting it on YouTube so you can watch my whole arc. And in the beginning, I was doing fairly well, and then everyone started dying and going really bad. So I took Rose's advice and just stopped paying to have them cured,
Right.
because that's really expensive.
Right.
And so I just kind of let them go mad to bank up money. And now I'm kind of on the other side of that, and
Right.
I'm in a place now where as long as I can maintain, I can do all right, and I'll make some progress again. And I have made progress. I've encountered 3 of the greater bosses, 2 of
Mhm.
the wandering bosses that you can't expect. You just have to go and hope you
The
find.
collector.
I
Yeah.
fought the collector. I didn't even know who
Yeah.
he was. I knew
Yeah.
nothing about him. He just showed
Yeah.
up, and I was like,
Yeah.
"What's up,
Yeah.
Cage Face,
Yeah.
dude?"
Yeah.
Right? You've
Cage
seen
face.
that
I
one.
was doing the same thing. It's cage face. Uh, Zog is also playing, and I was telling him, "Yeah, I just fought." He said, "Have you fought any bosses?" And I said, "I just fought Cage Face." Well,
Yeah,
that's not a who. And I was
yeah,
like, "The collector," and I was like,
collector.
"Yeah, Cage Face." And I
Yeah,
know it's not a boss, but it was still
but
a
he's a
tough fight when he
wandering.
just
Yeah,
pops
he
up the
was.
first time. Yeah.
Exactly. Um, but I've beaten that dude, and I killed the siren, and I encountered some greater elder god thing that was like a blobby. I don't know. It was a monster thing that also was kind of off book, and he wasted us. He took us out. Um, but you're right that there are character classes I don't really like, and I kind of refuse pathologically to approach any game like a math problem. As soon as I'm
Right.
doing that, I'm done. I'm
Right.
out.
Right. Right.
You
Right.
know,
Right.
it's
Right.
my fantasy's gone, right? And I'm playing Darkest Dungeon, as you pointed out, in a way that's kind of different from your average role playing game where you like these people, or this is your character. You have some compassion for them, or whatever. No, man, I'm just as cursed as the guy who came before me with this jacked up Dankest Crown's rock, right? And these foolish adventurers keep coming here for fame and glory. I'm just gonna throw them in the hole because my goal is the tick boxes and bringing back all those items that my family
Well,
sequestered down in the hole. That's
I
it.
don't know if this is I don't know if this is spoilers for you, but what I do is I'm paying attention to what their perks are. So I'm hoping to bring a Cove adventurer and a Cove Strounger over to the Cove. So I have my Cove
Sure.
team. I have my
Whale team and
yeah. Um, but um, but that kind of leads me over to my next area that I wanted to talk about, which is madness. I mean, so one of the things that I love about this game, and it being a Cthulhu game, where that is really what happens in Cthulhu stories, you're either going to die or go
I'll
mad.
go crazy
And
to some degree.
yeah, you might get out alive, but you're going to be crazy if you do, for the most part.
Correct.
So it is really fun to be playing this game. You start with a crew of, 4 people, actually 2, but you get up to 4 pretty quickly. Um, and you go through, and I think the Crusader always starts with kleptomania. And so you walk into your first dungeon and you see a bag of loot, and he's like,
I'm on it.
no, you didn't see this. There's nothing in there." And the loot box pops up, but you can't access it because your one guy stole that loot
He
from
stole the loot. Yeah.
you. And if they go bonkers, um, you're trying to heal the guy, and they're like, "Nope, I like my blood rage. Don't heal me. I'm enraged." Or they start acting on their own, doing stuff that they want to do. You try to feed them, they're like, "Nope,
Sometimes that's
I'm
okay.
okay." Well, it's all okay, but that had me thinking, how would that work in Revival? Like, that's why I'm so keen now on this madness stat and what could happen. One of the examples that I came up with a few days ago was maybe even if you have a kleptomania tag on your character in Revival, it might not force you to steal stuff, but maybe the NPCs are like, "Oh, there's that klepto. Yeah, I didn't steal anything. We saw you. We saw you steal it.
Yeah, we know it
I,
happened,
yeah,
but I
I
didn't.
I wasn't there. I'm telling you. No, we literally saw you. I don't care what you're telling us.
Right.
You're crazy. We saw you take it."
Yep.
Um,
That would
that
be
kind of stuff.
interesting. The way I think I would do that would be by, and I'm not sure, but if I were to do that, I think I would slip items from nearby you into your inventory, and then just treat that as though you had stolen it.
And that's possible too, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, so that had me thinking about madness and how that might um, play out. So I think the question that I prepared for you was, well, because I had been thinking about this too. Temporal damage, stat damage from curses. It might push you to. My camera is that's on sale. Okay.
Maybe.
I saw my camera spinning. Um, how that might push you to play differently. Like, early on, I was talking about chaotic good and how I'm normally chaotic good and how I play. And then just the last several weeks, I've been thinking, but even if I think I'm chaotic good, if I've got stat damage or temporal damage where I'm mad, that might push me to play in ways that I wouldn't normally because I need to get rid of the curse.
Certainly.
Um, so I'm just wondering how that fits into the phobias and all that stuff, obsessions.
Well, we're synthesizing some of those on your half, certainly, in that, on the meat part of the person, because, for example, if we were to curse you with something and make at least the most obvious way to save yourself, eat a baby. I mean, we don't have babies, but something. Throw a cat off a cliff or something
Yeah.
just horrible, and you go, no, and you balk at me, at first, I'm not going to do that, but then you're the worst farmer for the next 3 years or whatever, and you're just like, God, I can't make a living.
Hmm.
I really, maybe I'm, one dark night, you're driven to go throw a cat off a cliff, and
Hmm.
that's all here on you. And
Yeah,
so
but I'm saying,
that'll be way more visceral. And then when you go do it, now you're tagged cat murderer. So
yeah,
you're starting to slip, down that slope. And since your alignment is like on your side of the computer,
hmm,
basically, and you could just go at that point and do whatever. It may be a little desensitizing, for example, to throw that cat
right.
off of the cliff. Now you go back and, oh wow, you're getting good farmer stuff and right
Yeah,
on. And the curse is lifted and isn't that great. And then maybe the game, the system, or one of us tempts you further. 2 cats
hmm.
next time, 3 cats until you're throwing whole
Well, I
baskets of
guess
kittens off of the cliff on the regular, and now you've slipped at that point. You're
exactly. Right, and so that's what I'm saying. There seems to be ways that curses could be pushing us again because, right, you keep saying that alignments aren't really a thing.
yeah, they're
Um,
you
um,
find that.
but but again, there are ways. Somebody was talking about being a paladin and what a paladin would do, and sometimes you might think that that's what you would do until you get cursed, and what do you can't pray anymore. Maybe your
Your prayers
whatever.
fall unanswered, or yeah,
Yeah.
unless
Um,
you do something bigger or greater, and maybe you only find that out by reading some apocryphal tome, the Dead Sea Scrolls equivalent of your god's work, and you're like, this is some fringy thing, but maybe this will get me back into their grace, and then
yeah, like maybe you are a PvP hater, but you got cursed in such a way that the PvP blessings don't work for you until you kill somebody.
yep, well, rock
It's just
hard
one
place
person. It's just one person, and then I won't have to fight anymore.
anymore. I promise.
Um, I mean, I'm hoping that we see some things like that. So yeah, I guess what I was wondering though is, are there things like that? What happens with the madness stat other than slipping through to other planes or seeing into this madness realm? Is there potential for stat damage coming from? And I guess, again, like Darkest Dungeon has that degree to some degree that, you've gotten cursed, and so you have certain stats that are affected because of the curse, and you've got to find some way to get rid of the either the phobia or the curse. Are there things like that that are based on that might come from having a high madness?
we so the core stuff is the stuff you already talked about, the slipping through the planes to the way that a high level mage will sort of, as we've said, self deport, by losing when you're unhinged, you lose your place on the prime and slide out to one of the other planes, and then they kind of in an order, it goes. They're like shells, I guess you could describe it. With the Telestin Prime at the center and the realm of anima around that, and then outward. That's kind of just a abstract because they're not really that built that way, but in your mind they should be, and then you kind of slide out that way, based on how totally wackadoodle you go, and if you go completely out, that would be way out in the outers, the spheres of the outer gods.
Hmm.
But besides that, we have the idea that you'll see things from the other planes while you're on the prime. The more the higher your madness is, so
Hmm.
so that will manifest to other people
Hmm.
standing around you
You're seeing things.
as
Yeah.
you're seeing things, right?
Yeah.
So it's like madness itself doesn't cause stat damage. It's just like my madness is at 50, so my stats are down by 2. It's
Hmm.
not like that so much, but you accumulate tags as you go mad.
Well, that's kind of what I
By
was
via the
getting.
route you go crazy, and those can hang effects on you. You
Right.
know,
So
um,
that's what I was kind of thinking. Can't if you have a high enough, could you maybe start getting kleptomania tags or nymphomania tags, that kind of thing, and
yeah,
then
you
the
like
NPCs are maybe reacting to
just
you.
spend a wild night, in the throes of some ritual to Sirith, and then thenceforth you're easy. I mean that's 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 sort of hard, because I can't make you be easy, but
You can't, but you could make the
I could
NPCs
make the
react to you
NPCs,
as if.
catcall more often. I could, have them
I mean, that could hurt
offer
your
you more
reputation. Yeah.
sex.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I could hang a tag on you that just, says that everybody knows that you got with that dude, that
Yeah.
other chick, and that other person all at the same
I don't
time.
remember that. No, that
Yeah,
didn't happen. I don't
well,
remember doing that.
yeah,
Right.
we do.
Um. So
So
that
I have some questions along that line.
Go ahead.
If you
This is
want to,
going into the field of madness type stuff,
yeah.
or different. Yeah. Go ahead. Go for it.
Okay. So from what I've read so far, madness makes you see the other planes,
Mhm.
and they can see you,
Yes.
and that veil between the planes, wherever you are and wherever they are, gets very thin, thin enough for them to begin to interact with you.
Yeah.
So the question is madness then like a two-way mirror between the planes? And if so, does it apply to all the planes?
Yes.
Thank you.
I believe the answer would be yes. And if I'm It's kind of it's a metaphor, right? So, if I'm picturing your metaphor correctly, yeah, and that becomes less mirrored the more crazy you get, and that it would be in stages.
Right, but a two-way mirror then, as it begins to clear,
Uh-huh.
you can see them, they can see you, and pretty soon, crazy enough,
It's
and that
just not
two-way
there.
mirror becomes a two-way gate.
Yes.
Yes, yeah,
It's a
exactly.
door.
And further, you will gravitate towards the other side
Okay.
in a direction that heads outward away from Teleston Prime.
Right.
So-
But that applies from all the planes to all the planes, right? I think all of our previous examples have been the prime plane to somewhere else. And I'm
Correct.
thinking,
You could fight your way back. It would
but I
be,
Well,
mean,
I guess
between the
she's saying
outer planes and the Hall of Doors, or the Hall of Doors and the Dreamtime.
so the
Dreamlands.
Dreamlands and the Hall of Doors are their own spheres of reality, so to speak.
Okay.
So you will have to use another mode of planes travel to get to than just sheer madness.
Okay.
While I think it might be possible, okay, I know it's possible. I'll just put it on the table. I know it's possible to get to the Hall of Doors from each of the planes and vice versa.
Yes.
So you could slide via madness out to the plane of the great old ones and find your way from there into the Hall of Doors and thence from there somewhere else, wherever that may be. That's a possibility, probably difficult. But if you're super mad, you will be compelled to be as far out as your madness kind of has you, and tags between the two. So if you would like to come back and work great magics on the Prime, you'll have to make that happen for yourself. You will
Right,
have to
okay.
work to make that happen, and then work to stay there, because your natural mode would be to slide back out to crazy.
Okay.
And I have a follow-up. This is, I think this was Yalaya's question, about the field of madness specifically. So, because I was talking about slipping into the planes, he has a question specifically about where the field of madness is. So is that an area kind of like the Dreamlands, or how does that work?
Okay. So, like, where are you physically?
I think
Where
so. Like
where's the map?
the field? Well, the field of madness seems to be a place. So is that like a place in Anamaya's realm? Is that a place in the Outer
Oh, I see
Gods
what you
realm?
mean. No,
Or
I think okay. There are planes. There is not one plane of madness so much as there are multiple planes, and your madness gives you access to them.
right,
So
Right.
it's more like that.
right.
And
And so,
the
go ahead.
planes sort of overlap to some degree, but the further out you go, the less that's true.
So, right. So I guess I'm wondering, because this seemed to be the question that he had. It is the field of madness a place, like the Dreamlands is a place, or Anamaya's realm is a place, or is that one of the is there a plane that is the field of madness, or is there a section of the Dreamlands that might be called the field of madness,
Or is it more of
Oh,
just a catch-all?
it was a
yeah,
catch-all. I think
okay,
I understand now. Yeah, I think I was
okay, I got you.
speaking generally.
Great, I got you. I think because that's the way I was thinking of it, but the pushback was no. There is a mention of the field of madness, and that's a place. I want to know where that is. Uh, and
Yeah,
I was like, maybe
it's
that's
all.
true. I
It's
don't know.
I was referring to
Right,
all of them,
right, great,
all of the many and varied.
great.
Okay, that makes
Um,
sense.
do you have a follow-up poll?
I do, and I also want to kind of give a heads up on Auntie's question regarding using madness as a weapon.
Mm.
That's a fascinating question. I so wish I had thought of it, but I want to
Can
give
I?
props to that because that's great.
I'm gonna grind my gaslighting skill.
But you gotta keep it. Do you have Auntie's quote
I'm
handy?
sorry. I could leave that. I had to throw that one.
No, sorry, I got waylaid, Diggs, and
Okay,
I didn't go get it. But that is the essential question that
keep
I recall from that post.
yeah, keep talking. I'm gonna go try and find that quote so we can.
Okay, so my secondary question, following up on the first, if the answer to that was yes, is if madness is a way to access the two-way mirror, are there other ways that are not madness related to do the same thing?
Oh, sure. There are rituals wherein you can, for short periods of time, perhaps visit some great old one in their place where they are, and that would be essentially going to the plane of the great old one for some period of time. And if during that interaction that great old one smacks you with the crazy stick or just gives you a token of great old one being, wraps it, touches you with the noodly tentacle, then maybe you stick around. And then you
Okay,
have to
but I
find
mean,
your way
is there
back.
any way that's not madness related? Or that has madness as a tag or madness as an effect? Is there, I mean, planeswalking, I know, but even that is magic, and so
Yeah,
there's
there's a little
madness.
whack. There's some wackadoodliness in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any way? So I don't think you can really interact with the greater forces without some sort of effect on your sanity.
Okay. All right,
Like,
well, that makes sense then.
It's mind bending in general, right? Like,
Right.
Sure. Okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you.
I have Auntie's quote. She said, "I wonder if you could use the madness itself as a weapon, like a magical effect that does little or no physical damage, but causes ongoing madness damage to anyone watching. This would be more a defensive action than an offensive one, unlikely to win a fight, but having a good chance of encouraging most enemies to go away." And there's a follow-up thread, kind of, also. I forget who started it. Friday, I think, but it was asking about could there be a ship where madness is like just radiating from the ship? How does what are the
That was a
ways
good
that
question.
madness could be used?
um,
To Yeah, go ahead.
I'm pretty certainly the catch-all answer is yeah, there probably are. I can think of applying the elder sign somewhere and having somebody look upon that and like or an illusion or a fear sort of thing that you could do to yourself, in a defensive way. That is just basically kind of mind twisting, just kind of reaches over and goes,
Well, so this happens
So
in
no
Darkest.
physical damage, but it
But
happens
this
in
happens. This happens in Darkest Dungeon again, right?
yeah.
They go bonkers, and then they start saying crazy shit, and everybody else goes bonkers.
I know. Seriously. I'm
We're
like, yep,
doomed.
shut up.
We're
Shut
doomed.
up.
Ah!
Buck
Yeah,
up, Cameron, draw your sword.
yeah,
And if you watch me play, I will tell them things like that
yeah,
because that's part of
yeah.
the fun of my game. Is
yeah. Yeah,
I like to
it's
communicate
great.
with
It's
my
not
group.
really a role playing game necessarily, but it's fun to role play through it for sure.
Well, I don't role play them. I role play me.
I'm just saying
The seat
you're
owner.
responding, but you're responding to their right.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm
And then I
saying.
do things like when I happen to have an occultist, which is rare because first of all they show up very rarely on my cart. Even though if you pay attention to my upgrades, I've actually spent a great deal of money in upgrades. I've just done things like upgrade the cart, upgrade the slots in the bar. So I have things that kind of keep people unstressed enough that I can keep a flux going. But when I have an occultist, I like to carry my little skull, so I can go ha ha and cast the spells. I'm gonna put a little white candle in there.
There's a reason. There's a reason. There's medical herbs that need to be legalized, right?
Yes, I absolutely agree. I agree.
Um,
It's
and
good
you can
for all.
find
It's
them.
good for everybody.
This is actually what camping is good for, by the way. One of the
Well,
primary
sure, but
purposes is
you know what?
de-stressing.
You're totally right, but you can't purchase out of the store, and this is a mechanics thing, a wood pile. You can't go, and I'm going to bring, a campfire so that I can camp whenever I want.
You
And,
can't
and
do whenever
mission.
you want, but I mean that's part of the management. Is
Right. You have to pick
I've got
a
my guys.
quest that has one in it that's like,
Yes.
okay, this one's
Well,
going
it
to
just
camp.
means a medium. Yeah, a medium
Yeah,
or a
a
long.
length.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But you can't camp in a small one because no way, man. That'd
right,
make it too
right,
easy, right?
right. That's right.
And if I could, I'll bet you sometimes I would buy fewer torches or fewer some things and buy a campfire because it's not that I want them to die. It's that it's kind of this town is this town with this reputation for fame and glory, but also terrible danger. And this guy's handing out gold coins to destitute adventurers if they'll come and brave the cove. You know, it's
Yeah, I'm kind of managing my adventures by using the short runs for money and the medium ones to de-stress.
yeah.
Um, but
I do not
so,
like
but
my
what I was
vestals to die. I do not like my lepers to die.
what I was gonna say earlier is
Feel better.
it was really funny when I was playing when I was watching you play last Monday, and I was like, "You're going into the cove without an occultist?" I said that like 2 times, and then I was like, "I feel like those guys in those assholes in the dungeons who are like, you have to play in this way, and if you don't play in this way, I'm gonna kick you from my group because you don't know how to play."
That's right.
Um,
I
um,
understand.
it's
Well, and
so
so the goal of Darkest Dungeon is the check boxes. Is kill all the bosses, defeat them all, and clean up the place. There is no time limit on that.
yeah,
You can go as long as you want, and there are plenty of mechanics for falling all the way to rock bottom and building all the way back up, or being anywhere kind of in between as you go. And I haven't even unlocked everything in the city yet, so I'm
yeah,
not
but
in a hurry.
that's right, and that's that whole thing, right? We have to get there as fast as possible. It's like no, because I would do the same thing. I would when I played WoW and EverQuest, I might not choose the best armor because I want to look unique. And if
Right.
the way you look unique is to have my character only wear starting rags, and that means that I wipe a lot of times in the dungeons. Well, I'm role playing my
You're willing to
character
do it.
sucks.
You know.
So, you know,
Yeah, those games have more of a goal, but again, even in an MMO, there's no time limit. Then do
yeah,
whatever you want. It's an artificially imposed sort of
exactly.
race, and we'll get there. We'll get there eventually. And as I run out of small challenges, I'll have to build bigger groups, and I'll probably focus on it a little more then. But I don't know. And there are some abilities I like more than others. Also, there are some other weird lateral things I don't exactly do on purpose, but I've heard other people do, like torchless runs, where you get
Right,
people
right, right,
right
right, right, right.
because you crit more apparently, and get
And you get
higher
better loot.
rewards, get
Yeah.
better loot, right? So they'll go torchless, and I've done that I think twice, and it was because I was broke. So I'll just let the game's mechanics force me into weird situations, and then see how I can make that weird situation work out, and that's the game for me.
Yeah,
It's more fun with the dice in my hand of what is the challenge today. It's two lepers and an abomination. Well, all
yeah,
right.
yeah,
Let's see.
yeah. There's all kinds of, I mean, what places to focus in that game. So you can, I mean, I think it's another thing that you guys have talked about a little bit, but I think is one of the core aspects of the game is kind of easy to jump into, but difficult to master everything. Like it takes a while to figure out all the little
The breadth of
stuff that
what you can
you can
absolutely.
do. Um, but yeah, so I was wondering from Auntie's question too, if she's asking if you can weaponize it. So are there? We have a necromancer that is focused on death. Is there some kind of profession, master profession that might focus on harnessing madness as a I don't know what that means. Focus? What would you call what the necromancer does and apply that to
To
madness the way
some degree,
necromancer
yeah.
does with death?
To some degree, all wizards, all mages will be doing this just because madness amplifies magic in a lot of ways. It gives you access to the greater and more powerful things.
Right.
Um,
I think that's the other aspect of her question is that from watching the supernatural, you kind of start getting madness hits in any case,
correct.
passive ones, just from watching in any case. So,
Yeah. Well, and to defy the laws of physics as they are, you
right.
need to be a particular level of unhinged. To even think that the world could do that. To make
Right.
it to realize it.
Yeah.
So,
Paul, did you have other questions?
No, I mean, I think it's possible to ping off all of this conversation, but those are my two questions.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to give up time to sail.
Good.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so I've been stewing on this quite a bit. So, yes, be afraid if it suits you, or not. It might be rather soothing, actually. So consider, I guess, as long as madness can be induced either by direct action or by, area action, which is to say, right, I mean, if someone, just sees some sort of crazy ritual shit going on, then they go more mad, then I think it's almost, regardless of whether or not you intend it, almost possible, or whether Snipe intends it, perhaps in this case, to weaponize madness, right? I would see madness more as a logistical weapon rather than a direct weapon, right? I mean, obviously, its effects are never strictly direct unless you can actually zap someone into, somewhere in the fields of madness by just spontaneously snapping your fingers and everyone goes crazy. But right, if it's more of a slow and insidious killer, right, then you sort of your objective in using it would be more so to disrupt other people's operations, right? I mean, I don't see madness being any way effective in like PvE, but in PvP, if you can go into like, if you can go into someone's empire space, right? To use the, or not empire space, into their nullsec, but their like alliance space in Eve, and you can just like basically set up something that reduces the effectiveness of their logistics, right? Then you gain advantage. And so necessarily, I think it's possible to weaponize it as long as there's some way for player action to induce it in others. So whether or not you can shoot Madness Ray is I think secondary to just the mechanical fact of whether it's doable at all.
Yes, and I'm sure. I think again the answer is in general yes. The granular answer is yes. You could granular is yes. You could do that.
The other thing
I can even
ahead.
see a way. I could see a way for someone significantly well prepared to, maybe they'd have to contact you or something, but to, say a word to you in a tongue so otherworldly that you just, to everyone standing around, it looks like I reached over and said something they can't quite remember, said Fnord, and you exploded into purple sparks and found yourself standing on the blasted plains of some holy alien place, Oh, shit. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, no, I think I misinterpreted Pole's question earlier, where I was thinking that, or rather, the thing that I think that she was deviously trying to hint at or pry out of you was the question of whether extraplanar forces can use your madness as a conduit to then influence and enter the prime plane.
Yes.
But
They do.
Yes, they do.
I already knew that though going in.
Shh. I know you knew that. I know that I knew that too, but I figured you were trying to make some sort of deeper play here to get like some sort of very specific information that you would then employ in your actual gameplay later on.
I don't know if I'm that clever, Sam.
That's okay.
And there could be some wicked cool feedback in that too, because
sure, absolutely.
One thing that Sale just reminded me of, there was a week or so ago, someone was asking about ghost towns and could literal ghost towns appear by decimating a city or a town, decimating a village or a town, I guess. And I was saying, well, I think it has to be some unusual event. I don't think that would happen just by merely killing everybody in the town. I think probably it would
depends on the logistics of the town, yeah.
But I guess if we relate that to madness, so if ghosts are, if it's a literal town of ghosts and you go there, I would imagine just the fact that you're able to see them, like they're manifesting in such a way that people on the prime plane can see them if they're that powerful, because I think you have to have fairly high spirit to be able to even manifest from on a mind. So one thing I was thinking is, why would they even stay in the town, right? Why would they come back? They would have to try to make their way back there or choose to stay there on my side. But I think you have to have fairly high spirit to do that.
Well, yeah, and they would. So the idea of the ghosts, yeah, that's sort of a thing. Like, because if you died and then you found your way out of Mortality Gate, you'd probably just go back to your house and clean the blood off the walls and be like, those guys are jerks,
Yeah. Yeah.
Theoretically, there could be a concept of a lingering spirit. Like if somebody could find a way, maybe to I don't know.
Well, I was thinking
Once
even
you're fully dead, if you're still lingering in Anime's realm and you have a high spirit, you could be a ghost. That's I could see that. But I don't know that you would just haunt the whole town necessarily.
well, players wouldn't, but NPCs
But
might.
NPCs might. That's true. But another possibility that might give you the same sort of feel, I guess, as a Telestonian average everyday prime dude, would be if there were, say, a city of spirits or extra dimensional beings or something on Anime's realm or on the plane of the Elder Gods, as those are kind of the closest to Teleston, and if they were for some reason bleeding through, so it wasn't so much that there was a ghost town as there was a town where the whole town moved away, and now there's a lingering something, tying the two back together, that the whole town itself is on another plane. And maybe you don't enter it when you're on the prime because you don't have that level of spirit or whatever, but strange things tend to happen here because of the concentrations and energy,
And from a PvE standpoint, I would think there might be reasons for people to go. If there's some kind of disturbance, then people might go trying to get rid of the disturbance and not necessarily, kill a bunch of people.
Right. Well, and
Or
I don't think
combat a
you
bunch
could.
of people.
Yeah, exactly. And in that particular case, I don't know that you could fight them with a weapon so much as maybe, say, some sort of magic or communication. Set up a crystal and try to get them to talk to you, or I don't know, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe go and try to bring the planes out of alignment so that the disturbances go away.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Interesting. I want to read a couple of things from chat. I think this came as a response to Auntie's question. Snipe had written, so there's actually some amount, I don't remember what this is, but some amount of this happens automatically when you cast powerful spells. The act of casting sort of warps everything around you in a way that causes madness for those in the field. So I think that's how it might affect people who are watching magic take place. There will certainly
Avert your eyes.
there will certainly be madness-inducing spells explicitly at the high end. At least now that he's thought about it, he says. Cool. What else was there? No, I just wanted to make sure we weren't losing anything from, or really super important things from chat. I think that's pretty caught up. I forgot to, and we're going to have to start doing this. Maybe Rose and Sale and Paul, when you're here, remind me to ask about questions early. We used to have the queue for questions, but I've been forgetting to mention that because I'm so excited to talk about other stuff. Were there any questions, people in chat? Anybody in chat have questions that you would like us to ask? I have a feeling that there was one other forum question that somebody had wanted me to ask. Maybe it was from...
It was Jelias.
No, I did get to that one.
You got that one done.
And Aunties.
And Aunties. It might have been Zero's? But Zero
right.
was the one who was... Zero was telling me to... I'm going to have to look for that real quick. Anybody else want to talk while I try and look for Zero's question?
I can fill in since you were asking me to actually say something.
Okay.
But yeah, so I guess I'm intrigued by the idea that people can play the game differently, right? But of course, that requires that there be some other way that the game is already, if you will, supposed to be played, right? And as you mentioned, Omba, like the game is already sort of designed where that's not exactly the case, or rather, like you'd have to be able to play the game against yourself, which is to say, set up like stooge goals and then beat them down, like in some way, or like actively hate yourself for playing the game. And then still play it in some horrid masochistic ritual, but like,
That's the bar.
Well, okay, I mean, hey, it's somewhere, right? But so I figure that I guess at that point it really becomes a matter of exploitation of mechanics, right? I mean, because otherwise, naturally, if you're playing the game to role play, right, you're going to be role playing. If you're playing the game just because you need something to play, right, you're playing the game. Sure, there's not necessarily like, an official leaderboard where you're trying to win the top, you're trying to go legend in Hearthstone, or become top, king of the arena or whatever in some other game. But there are microcosms of those structures that exist, and so it's, well, I mean, I hesitate to say this, of course, because then there's also the Eve side, whereby Eve doesn't strictly have an end game either, or a similar thing where the game is supposed to be played in a certain way, and it's fairly self-directed, right? But in that case, right, you have alliance warfare and stuff where people are executing really annoying coups against each other and doing really, really complicated interpersonal warfare to effectively get the largest slice of the interstellar pie that they can. And so I figure, realistically speaking, that there's a certain amount of that end game that's going to show up because the freedom of the game allows for it.
Correct. I'm sure.
And so then I wonder, it's just a question of whether the actual real end game is not forum PvP, as it would be in those cases, right? Because really, we all know that in any case, with any super serious game, the actual end game is forum or Reddit PvP, right? I mean, this is borne out in practice all the time. But really, I think the actual end game of Revival is breaking the game and crashing the servers without having to hack it.
That's a metagame. Okay.
No, it's the actual game, though, right? Because really, was trying to get us all to make him go mad by proxy. No, not really. I don't know.
I think it is a noble goal, I suppose. But likewise, your goal could be, to put out the sun, turn out the, make the game all night, all the time, or to bring
that would be fun.
Bring the planes into alignment so that the outer gods walk the face of the earth, or the Teleston, the world.
I would do that, but it would have to, or like rather, I would endeavor to do that, but that would be like, I'd have to be on an incredibly reckless tear for whatever reason to like actually assume that, right? Because my personal knowledge of systems and shit would say that would be fucking ridiculous, right? Like all of astronomy would go nuts, and therefore everything else would go completely nuts, right? Like, putting out the sun is bad, a bad
Juju.
deal, man. That does
Real
not
bad.
That does not give you some good results, unless, of course, you're just trying to do the Discordian thing, in which case it's your perfect result. By all means, Discordianism should aim for such a thing, and I hope you do it 23 days from launch, just because. But
there are multiple. So here's the meta, which is that there are multiple iterations of the world of Teleston.
Yeah, I figured.
So you can steer it your way, right? But then over on the EU server, they've steered it a wholly different way, and the differences between these two worlds is remarkable.
So what you're saying is you want Goratul and Blackwell to be controlled by a power elite that diverged them in wildly different story directions, and then you want a highly aggressive cabal of players to force the average player out of the game due to disenfranchisement on their playtime, and then that forces a server merge because you can't keep both servers open due to the loss of subs, and then that server merge, due to the vast differences in gameplay states that are currently happening in
the meta.
Just fucking cause some ridiculous narrative event that just fucking makes you actually break your keyboard.
I'm honestly all about the narrative events.
So
it's the narrative. That's where the rest of that.
that was what you were asking for, right? I mean, you couldn't have possibly been leading us on for any other reason.
Well, no, I'm getting a white paper out of this too.
True. We lost, guys. We lost. We lost. We lost.
I am a philosophy student studying narratology.
We lost, man. We lost from the very beginning. The game was set up for us to.
We have gone right over the edge.
Well, good game. GG, no read.
We
It
have
costs so much money to rematch, man.
I think the question Zero wanted me to ask was Auntie's question, so I think we're covered there. We have
Okay.
some questions in chat that I'm just gonna read off real quick, and maybe we'll get a Snipe has been answering, but maybe we'll get some Ombwa uh, vision as well. Oh, and that'll lead me up to my maybe last question. Cloaked asks, will madness be temporary? And Snipe says it's dynamic, but not exactly
Yeah.
temporary. So
Is heroin
it'll
temporary?
yeah, it'll fade over time if you don't accrue more, but the more mad you go, the easier it is to accrue.
Acid
Uh,
flashbacks, though.
oh, that was yeah,
That's
yeah,
what they
yeah.
say.
And then Jane Signal asked, how long might someone survive in a madness realm? Could one always live there? And if they are there, is it physical or just the mind?
Oh, they're there.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
physical. It's different than the dreamlands where your
Or your
mind
body
goes
stays in
into
bed.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It is different. Um, and you'll be there, and you can stay there perpetually as long as you can keep the circumstances right, your tags right, your levels right. You know, theoretically, you could stay there. I don't. I'm not going to say not. No, I'm not going to say no, not
Well,
forever. You could. You
it's
could
like
try.
but it's like you said, you will eventually slip off
Like,
into the other planes. So
yeah, if you're like super funky crazy, you're probably going to be off in those planes more often than not, and that even has a mechanical purpose in that it takes the highest power level mages and takes them off,
Segregates them from the
yeah,
world.
it's
Yeah.
funny
segregates them from the
because
prime.
it's funny because
You want to be a demigod, you got to hang out in the demigod's realm.
we heard this quote that you're expecting only 10% of the population to be mages, but you meant that only 10% of the mages on Telestin will be in the prime plane.
Well, and that'll be difficult.
Everybody else will be
Be
shut.
working, keep yourself there. We will self-deport you exactly to Magic Land.
Um,
So only 1 in 100 Jedi?
I have this concept
One in a
of
thousand.
I have this
Oh,
concept of a holo scroll, and so you read the holo scroll, and it will tell you three. Let's call them life goals. You know, one at a time, and you won't know what they are until you've completed each one, and then you can gain mad.
Wait.
Yeah.
this is a
Wait,
great.
so
Oh, go
so
ahead.
that's what the Elder Scrolls were the whole time?
Oh. Wait, so you're saying that Star Wars Galaxy's Jedi's are actually Elder Scrolls Daedra?
No. So what they are, so I got to get this right. So the Elder Scrolls Jedi are, according to their own, um, according to their own epistemology and ontology, the High Elves who have been redeemed from the current world, right? Because the mundane world is screwed over by, which god was it? Oh man, I'm blanking on all of my Elder Scrolls lore. But there's a whole big thing, right? Where the basically the elves got screwed over, right? Like we were supposed to be super cool, but now all you freaking, everyone else material, right, took away our transcendent, joy by forcing us to live lives in flesh. And then, so the Jedi are those who have then been redeemed from that state, but it's still like this intermediate thing because obviously the Jedi have an in-world purpose. So if we break the fifth wall,
Fifth
or
wall.
the fifth wall is the fourth wall is between the
Us.
game and I, right?
Yeah.
But the fifth wall is world boundaries.
Okay.
So, right, like so if you crack, I think, right, like where if you do like crack ships or crossovers, right?
ship
Like Street
it.
Fighter versus or what?
I said, I ship it.
Yeah, exactly. You ship it, and so so that would be like breaking the fifth wall, right? So if we break the fifth wall and tie the Elder Scrolls elves into the Jedi, then what we get is a scenario where the entire canon, including the extended canon of DC and Marvel comics, is really an expression about the divine tragedy, which is an underworld counterpoint played out in Revival by surrogate of the Divine Comedy by Alighieri, which means Illuminati confirmed.
I'm just impressed
Nord.
that wasn't written down. I would have had to
Yep.
read that from
Nord.
from notes.
Nord.
Crazy.
Yes, this actually is the real self. Okay.
I just want to say
I'm
something
literally just
intelligent.
spewing shit because it sounds funny, and occasionally missing the beat. Like
I've taken LSD many times.
I don't even need to, dude. I don't take anything. I drink water and this shit happens, right? Like
It's in the water, Sale.
it's in the water. I don't live in Flint, man. I don't live in Flint.
Verdi had a follow-up. Well, Cloaked had
Oh,
a question, or Verdi had a clarification to follow up Cloak's question. And he was saying maybe he was asking, could you do something that makes you so crazy that you can't become sane anymore? What do you think about that? What?
I think that's extreme. I think that's a pretty, 12-stepper view of madness. But I think, yeah, I think there are 12-step programs and they're full of people. So potentially there are at least people that could feel that way about the situation that they're in.
Yeah, it seemed like you had said before that there's ways that you could come back from. It might be difficult to do, but there's some ways to try
Yeah.
to do that. Um,
is madness an addiction? Is it official? Is it canonically an addiction?
Snipe says you can at the right levels of madness. In fact, madness sort of moves through a staged progression for each plane above the prime. At first, you can see things, then things can see you, then you can interact with them, and they can interact with you, I think. Then you transfer over physically, and the cycle starts again on the next plane. That's very interesting. So, kind of moving step by step through each plane as your madness raises. Um, Technically, no, but in practice, yeah, I bet it's effectively true that you could be so um, mad that you couldn't come back. Well, some people might not want to run through the difficulty of it for sure. The system will technically let you recover sanity anywhere, but the rate at which you recover sanity might not be good enough to overcome the ongoing madness you are accruing, depending on what you're doing and where you are. That's a very in-depth answer, I think. And let's see, it's the more that the magic comes from the gods, whether you want it to or not. We hear that a lot. So you could learn an invocation from a book and not realize that what you're doing is calling a dark power into your soul until it was too late, which is why in Darkest Dungeon, I just walk by bookshelves. I'm not touching any books anymore. I don't
You
know.
read too many unsettling passages,
Yes,
apparently.
yes, yes, yes. I'm not even hoping to get some kind of boon. I'm just imagining it's all that.
Sometimes
Um,
there's good stuff in there.
Sometimes I'm just not taking any chances these days.
This is actually good though because I was thinking about this earlier, but then as we got into later topics, I forgot about it. So in the event that someone like is actually cursed, right, and you're getting a bad crop and whatever, like every year you're gonna get a bad crop unless you throw a cat off the cliff, which you won't do because you love cats and you live in Bastet's Rest, which is obviously very bad if you throw a cat off a cliff
Sure.
because you're gonna die, son. And
Easy to
so
find cats, though.
what?
Easy to find cats.
Yeah, but they know.
Right.
Yeah, they know.
Yeah.
So you're not going to do it. You're also just a good. You don't want to kill cats because you know what's good for you and you like them. They're good. They're space heaters, and so they kill pests. So if you are cursed though, right, and you're a farmer and you as a player want to do the farming stuff, right? I'm assuming that there's enough affordance in the actual player skill side of that equation to still at least like if you get really good personally at the farming shit, like even if you're cursed, maybe not if you're really cursed, but like even if you are cursed, like you'd still be able to do all right, right? Because otherwise that's out of your hands then.
Right. Potentially.
Yeah.
Maybe you just got to use way more fertilizer. Try real hard.
Well, that's not player skill, is it?
No. That's one. No. Maybe you
Everybody
could be.
poops, right?
Everybody does, but I mean, so your player skill, yeah, it would still have an effect, of course. And
Yeah, I mean, I'm asking this seriously though, right? Because like, I don't mean it critically seriously. I just mean like, one should not be afraid of being cursed outside of their power and then being totally screwed.
That's true. At the same time, though, I don't think you would have a curse that would be super significant without either meddling in the affairs of greater powers.
Sure.
Or,
yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't expect so either.
I mean, you could be theoretically. It is possible you could cross paths with something that would mark you in a bad way. But I think, on the whole, if you were average, everyday, mellow farmer, and you would be horrified at the idea of being cursed, you probably would not meddle with the
Right.
affairs of gods. And,
You are properly God-fearing.
right, right,
It's
and then
God-protected.
you never get into a place like that unless you really piss off the witch up the street, and she hexy poo hex on you. And now, because she's a sadistic bitch, she has made you have to kill a cat. You know, knowing you live in Bastet's Rest, she puts the cat's tail curse on you. So, you know, I guess that's a way you could have that happen. But then I think what you do is you go find somebody to gank that witch, or to put her in a compromising position that breaks the spell, right?
Can I like self-polymorph into a newt instead? Does that work?
I don't know. Polymorph into a newt. That's pretty incredible. I think he'd go mad.
Jane Signal says everybody poops, and if they don't, they're an android and should be destroyed. Snipe says no game debilitating curse will be permanent, at least from his perspective. So I'm gonna try and wrap up unless you guys have other questions. I have one last question for Ombwa, which might actually take us a while. I don't know. But anybody else have any questions? Anything to say? Okay, so my final question for you, Ombwa, which is why I originally wanted to have you on the show, was to it's a new year. It's been a couple of months since you've been on, so I was kind of wondering if you have a general vision for what you're looking forward to for this year, the next several months, or with Revival.
I look forward to realizing the city, you know, exteriors and that sort of thing, because I think it will be eye-opening to people who haven't really considered the scope of what's kind of going on, to see the way that we build a city with, in comparison to the way that other MMO cities have been built, you know, historically. So that's a real lofty thing that I'm, you know, it's a big deal. And I'm also kind of looking forward to getting the back end stuff in place to allow people in the client to at least talk to each other, if not actually share space, because I think that's another compelling thing. I don't know how that's going to work out. Like, I don't know how that's going. I'd have to talk to a couple people in the studio, but those are the two goals that I think are most super rad. I would love to say that I could see a character builder, but that's on its own kind of parallel development path. Mm-hmm. So it's in the air, but I think, you know, a character builder would work great with those other two things I mentioned too, mm-hmm. because at that point you have a pocket game environment already, and so I think that would be compelling for a lot of people and would drive awareness, you know, as well as have people on the server all the time at that point, you know, which is a thing. That's a thing.
So, because I had heard that it might be possible that we'll be able to visit inside our homes before the outside.
It was one of our goals for sure.
Is ready, but so it looks like you're saying what you're hoping for this year. We aren't really doing schedules, but maybe by the end of this year we'll be outside of our homes, not just inside.
I hope so. That's the goal, man.
Okay. All right.
That's it. That's the beginnings.
It really is, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, pragmatically speaking, there are so many ways to build off of that. But like, I mean, it's the necessary minimal space for like pretty much. Well, no, you can still test certain systems without having like an interactive space, you know, of the city. But those are mostly just crafting.
Yeah. If we could get crafting, and then we could get food and drink and games in.
But everything else requires it.
In our homes, then stuff could happen in our homes
pretty quickly.
Role playing, yeah. So.
Nice roll.
Ha ha ha.
Yep.
Okie doke. Well, that's it for me. We're a little bit over. Again, if unless anybody has anything else to say, we can wrap up.
Yep.
What do we have to look forward to next week from the blog?
Oh, go ahead.
Well, yes. So we have. Let me check. I actually can't remember off the top of my head. Wrong blog. Where is it? Yes, the Song of the Seas. So next week, we are looking at Snipe Hunter is going to be talking about the logistics and mechanics of large group action
Oh,
and expedition kind of things,
nice.
which is actually rather interesting because that's something I think about a lot in this game. So I'm going to be looking out for that while not thinking about the implications of the story that we all got, which has many implications that I will let people find out on their own.
That's kind of interesting because I am interested in having a talk about with Snipe. I think about what his vision is for us looking for groups in game. Huh. So yeah, next week it'll be Saturday instead of Sunday. It'll be
Yes.
Saturday the 6th, Super Blog Saturday, and
Are we
we'll be
still shooting for the
covering.
same time
Yeah,
of
is it
day?
time slot the
Yeah,
same? Okay,
Yeah,
same
okay.
time.
I will
Um,
aim to be there.
and we'll be covering the
In
last
your
three
chat.
animal husbandry, um, the story we got on the Songs of the Seas. Well, that's the name of the blog, and then this next one that's coming up this coming Friday. So three shows
Just
in a
want
row.
to point out that last blog there is basically like a layer cake of like straight up lore. Just
Yeah, it's more like a what is that thing called? Like it's got a
Rifle?
like thing in the middle. It's got
tort.
like good stuff. Yeah, it's like a layered tort of straight
Yep.
deliciousness and tooth rotting joy.
Excellent.
Like
Glad you felt that
God,
way.
super sweet, super sweet, worth it always.
Okie doke. Well, that was fun. I hope I didn't monopolize too much of the time. I got a bunch in the beginning, but it seems like everybody jumped in at the end, so that's good. And thanks for coming along and chat. And hope to see you guys next week on Saturday. Thanks.
Indeed.
Take care, everyone.
See you guys.